9? Why do you have to make everything so complicated all the time?
Hello, Alex here for StepByStepMusic.com. Welcome back. This is lesson 4 in our 6-lesson series, Intervals in Music. Today we're going to look at compound intervals, which is what happens when an interval gets bigger than an octave. Yes, it can happen, and we're going to cover that right now.
Compound intervals, any interval greater than an octave. I'm going to show you how I measure that, and then later I'm going to show you why. Here is how we measure them. This document, as always, is available in the description for you to download if you would like it. A compound interval, again, anything over over an octave. Let's say that we're in the C scale here, and I've got a C, because who doesn't love a good C major scale, right? And I've got a D as my 2. So if I want the second, I play a D. If I play a D, I'm playing the second. There you go. That's all review. I also have a D up here, right? This 2 here could be called a D. And what we're going to do is if this one, and now if I want this 2, I don't want this one way down here buried by my 1 here. I want to specifically say that I want a 2 that's actually kind of way up in the stratosphere, way up there beyond my octave. And so what I'm gonna think about is I'm gonna say, well, 1, I have my scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, scale degrees 1 through 7. At number 1, it's the same as 8. We call that the octave, of course. So 8 equals 1. Okay? This is music math. It's not like regular math. So just hang on tight here. We'll get through this. 7 is just 7. But when we get to 8, it's the same as 1. So we could make a rule that anything over 8 is the same as that number, say, plus 7, because 1, I'm going to prove it to you right now. 1 plus 7 equals anybody? Bueller? 8. Yes. 1 plus 7 is 8. And so if 1 is 8, let's just run with this for a second. I've got my 8 here. What does 2 become? Well, you're very, very bright, and I'm sure you already saw this written on the screen. It becomes a 9. So when we're looking at intervals that are beyond the octave of our starting point, I have a note somewhere, and I say I want to measure this note way over here. I'll show you on the piano. I've got a note C, and I don't want this D here, right? I want that D way over there. So when I have a note that's beyond my octave, I just add 7 to that number, and that tells me how to refer to that interval, how to name that interval. Now, we can, of course, make adjustments to these, just as we normally do. If I have a 2 down here and I want to say, you know what, I want a D sharp, because why not? Because who doesn't like a good D sharp? And I've got my D sharp here. I've moved that 2 up, right? I'm thinking of that as what? Going back to lesson 3 of this series, I'm thinking of that as an augmented second, and that's great for me. And so I can write an augmented second. Plus is a symbol for augmented, by the way, or a sharp 2. And that's great. That's what I got. So if I go over here, I can say, well, that same 2 is a major 9 or a 9. We can call that a 9 or a major 9. If I move that 2 up, it is now the augmented 9th. And just as down here, if I've got myself a D flat, because I like myself a D flat in this key for some reason, I can call that a minor 9. I'm sorry, a minor 2 or a flat 2. So flat 2 or minor 2, let me get myself out of the way, minor 2, are the options there. If I am beyond the octave and I want to make sure that I'm referring to stuff beyond the octave, I have here a minor 9th. So that would be the same thing, just adding 7, same language, same everything. I could also call that a flat 9, right? I could call this augmented 9th a sharp 9. And there we go. So if I'm on the piano on my C, I've got my D way up there. That's my major 9. I've got my minor 9 or my flat 9, and I've got my D sharp, which is my augmented 9 or my sharp 9. But the fun doesn't end at the 9. No, no, no. We have so much more fun for you scheduled today. So we see the arrow taking us beyond the octave. We see the designations there for what we used to call a 2 and what we now call a 9. And we could do the same thing with 11. Yes, I skipped some intervals. I skipped the third. We'll get back to that. So I have my 11 here. So if I have a 4, if I've got I don't have the root pictured here, but let's say we're in a C, right? And this is the octave. This is my octave of C. And I want to go way beyond that, and I want to grab an F down here, the 4. That's an F. And when I bring the 4 up here beyond the octave, we're going to call it, what is it? It's 4 plus 7. That's an 11. We're going to call that an 11. Yes, I agree. And we can call it just an 11 is fine, or an 11th. We can call it a perfect 11th or a perfect 11. These are all acceptable terms. We're generally not going to diminish that, as we talked about in the last lesson. Same goes for the 11th as does the 4th. We're just going to leave it as an 11 or a perfect 11. And, of course, I can raise that if I have my F turning into an F sharp. Here, right? F sharp is my sharp 4 or my augmented 4th. I have my augmented 11th, or I could call that my sharp 11. And I've got one more for you today. The 13. We can have a 13. This is pretty uncommon, but it's a thing, so I'm going to go ahead and teach it to you. If I've got myself a 6 in the key of C, that would be an A, and I go, I'm going on beyond the C, well beyond. Look at the purple arrow. It's taking us way, way, way up here into the stratosphere of intervals, and we have ourselves a 6, which we're now going to say 6 plus 7. That's my 13. I've got a major 13th, more commonly known as a 13 or a 13th, but major 13 is also fine. I've got a minor 13 here, more commonly known as a flat 13, but minor 13 is fine. And there we go. So just like in our previous lesson, we've got all kinds of things that could be diminished and augmented, but traditionally we don't see all of the intervals treated in such a way. So traditionally, we're only going to see 9s, 11s, and 13s. I think I've seen 12 as a thing. What would 12 be? Quick, what's 12? Someone says, I want you to play the 12th. What do they mean? Give you a second. Okay. 12 minus 7, we'll take away the 7 this time, equals 5. And that would be it. Because if this is 8, we have 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so 12 could be a thing. Anything could be a thing, right? But traditionally, we see 9, 11, and 13. So that's what a compound interval is. Here's why they exist. And if you're asking why they exist, that is a super fair question. The reason is that sometimes we do want to designate to have an interval go beyond the octave, like I keep saying. And here's why. Let's say I've got a C chord. Yay, C chord. And let's say I want to add a 9 to it, because I just personally, by the way, I love 9s on piano. 9s are just beautiful, beautiful note on piano. So I'm going to add a 9 to that. I'm going to add the D. That sounds okay. I mean, you can hear some tension there. I'm playing them all together there so you can really hear them ring out. Okay. I think it sounds nice. It sounds okay. So I'm going to go ahead and not put that D up an octave. I'm going to bury that D in the chord as a 2. If we call it a 2, no reason it shouldn't sit right between the 1 and the 3, right? So here it is buried between the 1 and the 3. Again, up an octave, not up an octave. It's just really muddy. That's what we're getting there instead of... Let's try the 4, shall we? Let's try the 4 here. And I'm gonna first bury the 4 in my chord. Ooh, that is a little bit unpleasant, isn't it? Yeah, let's take that 4 up an octave, shall we? What are you going to call it when you take it up an octave? 4 plus 7, 11. Let's call it 11. Okay. It's still kind of, I call the 4 an avoid note on a major chord, just so you know. But it's much better than when we buried it in here. And I could maybe resolve that down to an E. And now that tension kind of melts away. So I could take that 11, or that 4 down to a 3. But yeah, anyways, that's how it would be used. On a minor chord, it's much less offensive. Let's do it on a minor chord, shall we? Let's take C minor. Ooh, very dark. Now that we've been hearing C major, that minor really draws you down, doesn't it? Okay, let's add that 4 in there. Okay, yeah, it's kind of much. I'm thinking it's kind of a lot to deal with, sonically speaking. Whew. Let's take that F away, and let's grab that F, that 4, as an 11, an octave up. It's kind of pretty now. It's kind of nice. Versus, that's why we do that. That's why sometimes, and it's usually in chords. When we get into building chords, or if you take my courses, or if you look at my lessons on chords, that's when we start using the 9s and the 11s to designate, to say, hey, yeah, I want a 2 in this chord, but I don't make it like a 2. Don't bury it between 1 and 3, because that just sounds like this. And I don't want it to sound like that. I want it to sound like this. So we're going to go ahead and call that a 9, or an 11, or a 13, or a flat 9, a sharp 9, augmented 9, augmented 11. Very, very fond of the augmented 11. Very, very mysterious note there. So that's what I've got for you today. Pretty quick and dirty, pretty simple. Again, it's kind of, as music tends to be, it's not necessarily logical, but when you look back at it after you've learned it, you go, yeah, okay, I can deal with that. I can do that. I can learn that stuff, and you can learn this stuff. Like I keep saying, it's just different. It's just new. So good for you for being here. I really appreciate that. If you want to throw some support my way for my channel, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like the video, make some comments. Please ask me questions. This stuff is confusing. It's easy to me to explain it to you because I already went through the struggles of learning it, but I remember those struggles. I remember reading about ninths and going, what are you talking about, 9? Why do I have a 9? Why do I have to make everything so complicated all the time, right? But here we are. That's our musical tradition. That's what it is. It's easy once you learn it, and I'm proud of you for sticking around. I'm really looking forward to our next lesson, part 5 in this series. We're going to talk about spelling intervals. Please don't miss that. It'll tell you if you should be calling something a D sharp or an E flat, for example. My name is Alex, and I will see you in the next lesson.